Hi everyone, and welcome to the Remain Indoors podcast, where we'll be looking at some lighter news from around the internet, having a grumble when required, and talking about the ways we're keeping ourselves entertained at home. Remain indoors. Well, that's a lie, isn't it? That intro, I've written it down about 6 months ago when we started doing this podcast, and we were going to look at lots of news-based stuff. But it turns out we'd never really get round to it. Like, we had news items sitting there for ages and ages that we've never got round to. So that intro's a lie. I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it again. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Spanners and Matt just talk about stuff that's happened to them, and like just talk about their lives and stuff, and then drag expert people in who do noble things such as like cure cancer and things, and then make them talk about, I don't know, farts or whatever. That would be a truer representation and intro of this show. I'm your host, Richard Spanners Ready, and I'm joined by Matt Rumpets. Matt, what do you make of my more honest intro?
I'm mildly amused at your search for veracity in this current media age.
I don't know what veracity means, and I think you know that.
Truth.
Oh, true. Let's
Truth.
be honest.
Yeah, like why are you even bothering to pretend like it matters whether we just make up things and say them, or we can support them with research and statistics and facts? Because apparently it doesn't matter anymore. There is no truth. It's all gone.
Okay, so we're going to be a little sensitive to Matt, who's having to, go through the US presidential debates and the run up to the November election. And honestly, every American I've interacted with, far too many, but, just day to day. I just had a meeting with an American fellow today before this show, and he was super angry. And I'm sensing from you that you're also super angry.
No, I mean, I'm not really angry. It's just, and it's a larger thing than just the presidential election. The idea that there is a referenceable set of facts that can be described to an audience regardless, it has been lost because everyone's discovered you can make a lot more money just saying whatever you want to say to make money right then and there.
Yeah, and I tuned into a little bit of the presidential debate, and I tuned out quite quickly because it wasn't useful. It wasn't useful. It felt one side was talking, basically both of them were talking to their own audiences, and it's no longer a case of people sitting at home going, which one of these fine fellows can make the stronger case for their presidential bid? It's not that anymore. It's tribal, Like, on the one hand, you've got Trump just saying things that aren't true. I don't know whether Joe Biden was inaccurate in any way. I don't know enough about the US politics, but I knew enough that a lot of the things Trump was saying was like blatantly wrong. So most people who already don't like Trump are going to go, well, that's a lie. But then he seems to have obviously like a following that will just lap that up. So he's specifically talking to his following that are already invested in him. So I just didn't see any usefulness to that debate at all. Are there any undecided people in the US?
Polling always shows there are some undecided people, but I think if you are undecided at this point, like, you've got other issues.
Yeah, don't vote. Just don't vote. Don't guess, for goodness sake.
You've got bigger issues. If you don't know what's going on and you don't know who to vote for now, you've probably got bigger issues in your life, and it's okay. We understand. No, I actually made up a joke about this.
Go on then. Let's see that. Let's see the humor.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting Donald.
Interrupting Donald.
Socialist. Obamacare. Sorry, was that good? You like that, right?
I did. It tickled me because I knew what was coming, and I had to say it slowly enough to allow for the slight Zoom lag. It's a classic joke that me and my kids discovered about 4 years ago, and it's interrupting cow, isn't it? Interrupting cow, moo, like that, and it's the funniest joke to do with 4-year-olds. So we learnt that when they were 4 or 6. I remembered it about 2 months ago. We were sat at the dinner table. I asked Ivy a question, and as she started answering, I just out of nowhere just went, moo! And like collectively, we all remembered the joke from about 3-4 years ago, and we were just crying and crying. But yeah, I didn't mean to start on a bummer. I didn't mean to start with triggering you about your recent debates, Matt.
No, I have the ability I won't say dispassionately, but I can watch stuff like that and walk away usually with my equanimity fairly intact.
Yeah.
But my wife, no, like about 3 minutes into it, I was like, "How about we go watch some classic Time Team instead?"
Yeah.
Because I could see that her head was just about ready to explode.
I mean, I don't want to. You really have to sort of work hard to like, oh, I can't show any bias. But when somebody is like actively being and doing evil things and saying evil things, and I don't know, I can go on the record and say, without any fear or prejudice, I think white supremacists are bad, Matt. I think they're terrible, and I think they should stop being white supremacists, and it's mean. On any side that was to support that, I can't help. I wouldn't be able to help myself but to say, no, they're the baddies. Okay, I'll say this, and it's not controversial. White supremacists are baddies. I can say that, can't I?
You can say that, and I think we can agree that we both can and have said that. And I don't think it's unfair to describe factually what happened. That one side absolutely failed to follow the rules of the debate, and as a result, whatever use it might once have had was utterly, tossed in the bin.
So
Yeah,
I say,
that's pretty much
so the moderator there had just a terrible job, and someone was suggesting that he just needs a little mute button.
Yeah, I mean, I presume there's a producer. I presume there's someone running the audio, and I presume, just like my board, there's a mute button that can be hit for.
Yeah, I just muted you for effect there.
Remarkable that they didn't think to use it. I can understand who would have thought to do such a thing. But anyway.
Last thing then because I'm commenting on US politics and I'm like a guy in a shed south of Bedfordshire. So it's, on the one hand, it's none of my business. On the other hand, it's an incredibly powerful nation, and what happens in the US is important, for the whole world. And also, I love America. Like, I am a massive Yankophile. All my pop culture that I love, all the, the trends I love, all American, all the fast food joints that I drive to after work that I'm not supposed to, all American ideas. And I love what your country has produced. And I want to continue loving your country. So, like, I am invested in, like, what is going to happen and the direction you guys take. But the last thing I wanted to really talk about on it is the interesting transition of power thing, because I can't believe that's even become an issue. Like, it's been in the headlines constantly. Will you do a peaceful transition of power? And just the thought that, like, a president might lose the election and go, nope, and just sit there is genuinely scary. Like, tell me that is all bluster, and that actually, the merest hint of him refusing to go and F-16s would get scrambled or whatever.
I'm fairly certain that when push comes to shove, he'll be dragged out of the White House by Secret Service officers should he lose the election and refuse to vacate the White House.
Okay.
I don't think there's a lot of the stratagems and things that have been talked about.
Yeah.
I think are only plausible in the broadest sense. And in a realistic sense, people who are more intimate and knowledgeable about the machinations of how things go generally have said, no, it's not a realistic possibility at all. And he's just doing that.
So fear, doubt, yeah.
Bingo, to take the conversation away from other subjects that he'd rather not have them focused on. I could bring up many of these subjects right now if you like.
No.
But why would we? Why would we bring up the arrest of his former campaign manager for embezzling funds? I mean, or whatever it was. I don't know.
If you're just
it was
saying,
cool video though.
If you're just saying a thing that's been reported, then that's fine. We're not
It
offering.
is. His former campaign manager was actually arrested in Florida a couple of days ago.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to make any further comment on that. We've danced as close to the line as I dare. But we were supposed to have a guest with us. We were supposed to have Lauren Thomas from girlrunninglate.com. So please still go and check out her stuff at girlrunninglate.com and search for Girl Running Late on Instagram and Twitter. But her internet is just out. We're trying to find a solution all day and we've not found one. So I did a guilt run for nothing, because every time Lauren is scheduled to come on, I will like if I've got a broken leg, I'll be like, oh, Lauren's coming on. I best do a run so I look all like, I don't know, so I look like I've had a run. So I don't come on here with like a guilty feeling, basically.
Right. No, yeah, I get, but you wasted it. You wasted that effort. What's the point now? Because,
Yeah.
well, presumably maybe she's listening, so still it will be useful.
No, her internet's out, so she can't watch live. So I can edit all this
She
out.
has her
It's fine.
phone.
So I've been running and doing all that stuff anyway, as I said last week, on a massive health kick because not for health reasons. I want to look better with my shirt off, and I want to beat Kyle and Alex at karting and gain an unfair weight advantage. And I love the suggestion from Carl that was like, well, if you want to get an unfair advantage, you could do that. I'm like, yeah, correct. I want an unfair advantage, so I'm going to lose 10 kilograms.
How is that unfair?
Yeah, I know, because I said to them, well, I'm declaring that I'm doing it, so you could also do that. The competition starts now. To be honest, I think they'll still beat me.
That's like saying, well, I'm sorry, Usain Bolt, you weigh too little. Here, have 10 kilograms to carry around on your back during the sprints.
Hello, chat room. Jack Trigg says, did you mention you'd been running spanners? Yeah, you've got to. If you don't mention it on at least social media, then it doesn't count. But I say it on a podcast, so it counts double, I believe. It counts double. But yeah, I think so. I think that's...
No, the more people who hear it, the more useful the run was.
Exactly. But anyway, wasted because I don't get to show off and talk running with Lauren, but we'll get Lauren on. Get Lauren on nice and soon. But I have been on a diet with a 5-egg diet. So someone's going to tell me it's really bad. But I've been eating. Here's my diet schedule at the moment because I'm losing weight at an unhealthy pace, which I'm delighted with.
Losing health at an unweighty pace.
What? I'm losing pace at an unweighty pace. But I know you're meant to lose weight steadily, but I'm just like, I'm fed up. I was fed up of feeling like bloated and fat throughout COVID. So I'm just going for it and not having breakfast like both of us don't, and we're not breakfast people. But then when it gets to lunch, I've been doing like 5 eggs, a bit of chicken, and then whatever, maybe a little bit of cheese. And that has filled me up to the point where I don't really want dinner either. So I've just been like a snake having that one dinner of 5 eggs a day and then nothing else really.
That is an interesting way to go about it. But yeah, basically you're eating one meal a day, which is more or less what I do. And it's remarkably easy, especially if you haven't been, to lose weight rapidly because you're actually restricting your calories much more so than you would with most diet methods.
Yeah, but with the higher protein, it feels like my appetite has kind of, is not as voracious.
Right.
Like when you eat a bag of chips or whatever, 4 hours later, you could eat another bag of chips. But I've been getting to the evening and I've just been cooking the kids' meals and just not feeling it. Like maybe I'll nick a corner of fish or something.
The chat room is making some comments about your house.
Oh, I have been getting yelled at. Like if she comes downstairs from her office and she's like, oh my God. I'll do it in her voice. oh my God, what's going on? Why does the house stink of eggs? Open those windows. Ah! That's how she sounds.
Yes, that's exactly, having met her in real life, that's exactly how she sounds, folks. Exactly.
But when she sings, she sounds wonderful. She sounds like an angel. She sounds like the woman I fell in love with. But, there's no getting the Rumford out of her.
Rumford? You'll have to explain that one.
Oh, sorry. She was, beg your pardon. So she was raised in South Essex, but she was from Rumford and all her family were like Cockneys. So, and they've all basically slowly migrated out of London. As London's got nicer, it's just kicked the riffraff out to the edges. And her family, in the end, got kicked all the way out the M25. So if you want to see her singing instead of my impression of her, I opened her an Instagram page because, she recorded herself just singing a song. And it was very rehearsally, and it was just from her phone. And I'm like, you should just be doing this all the time. You should just be recording yourself singing. We'll put the recordings of you and Vivi as well, and we'll just stick them on a YouTube channel, and you can have just this body of you singing songs. Because she's always felt like it's, not beneath her, but she's felt like it's a bit, hey, look at me, to record yourself singing and then put it on social media. She's got no problem doing it to 1,000 people at a festival, but she doesn't want to do it to show it off like that. And I just went, no. And I took the video and I put it all over my social media. And then now I've set her up her own Instagram. But I think, especially in lockdown times with musicians not gigging, you need to have a body of work. Normally you'd have your gigs or your albums or whatever. But now all those things don't really exist.
Yeah, it's an issue. And I can see it because if you're putting something up, it's a recording, and you feel like you have to spend a lot of time and make it utterly perfect because that's what the recording industry has now bequeathed to us as musicians.
Yeah.
And by example, I will tell you about was it Mel Broyles, who I studied with, played Metropolitan Opera, principal trumpet, told me about recording an opera, or maybe I read about it in a magazine, but this is years ago. And for one scene, it wasn't an entire act. For one scene, it was over 1,000 edits just for one scene to get it right. Like they
Wow.
recorded it 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 takes,
Mm.
and then the engineers made over 1,000 edits in one scene, which is like 5 or 10 minutes worth of music. Opera's 3.5 hours. So that's what the recording industry has bequeathed to us. We can sit down and make things absolutely perfect, technically perfect, as long as you give them the notes to start with.
Well, no, this is one of my wife's main complaints. The reason she doesn't want to put stuff on social media with just recorded on a phone, sitting and playing piano, is that it's not perfect. And very
Yep.
few live performances are perfect. And she says people are just spoiled. And she says she saw something with Alicia Keys and Billie Eilish, like both amazing, amazing vocalists. And the comments below were just like slamming it and criticizing it, because it's not been put through like a studio and put through effects and all that kind of stuff. And my wife's going, that's just what really good people sound like when they're just singing together. So I'm like, no,
Yep.
take your video with your little tiny mistake that you're sitting there biting your knuckles over and you're not perfect acoustics, and just put it up, because the right people will understand that that's how a good singer sounds. And, if people are looking for a singer and they see your body of work, they're going to give you a call. They're going to get in contact with you over that. And if they're the sort of people who are only looking out for the 1,000 edits that you're talking about, then we don't really care about them. We're after the people who can appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah, well, the problem you run into if you put that up, and I'm an engineer or producer looking for someone, I'm gonna hear something. Oh yeah, I know I can fix it in a studio. I'm not worried about that. The
Exactly.
problem you have is an audience that has been conditioned. That's the word I wanted. Conditioned to
Yeah.
hear only one thing, and if it sounds different, they say that's bad. That person is no good. I actually heard Paul Simon way back in the day. This would be like in maybe 90, 91. I was working crew at a concert at Cathedral St. John the Divine, and he sang something, and it was terrible. I mean, he was reading the lyrics, so it's obviously
Yeah.
he had not rehearsed it, but it was like he was mad out of tune. And this is not something you'd expect from someone who was the other part of Simon and Garfunkel. But as a musician, I was like, oh yeah, it happens. Some days are not your best days. The nice thing about live performances is, by the time you get to the end of the song, people forget the beginning of it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was trying to scrutinize the video she'd put up through different eyes to what she would do. So she's looking at it and she's almost editing it herself and going, here's where I'll
Yep.
edit it, here's where I'll edit it. I was looking at it going, oh man, I have missed watching her playing live, even like in a corner of a pub, or like she used to be like that person in the corner of a hotel, posh hotel lobby with a piano
Right.
and a microphone. All the way from that to seeing her with her live band on stage, giving it some welly. Like, I've missed it so much. And, I had a bit of an emotional post, well, for me, on Twitter, when I was like, how much I hate musicians. You know how much I slag you off for making your trade out of an instrument that's only got 3 buttons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least I have 3 buttons. If I was a trombone player, I just have a slide.
I think trombone is more plumbing than anything, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. So like, I'm the first to slag off musicians and my wife. And when she says she's got a degree or she talks about university, I always go, well, a degree. I always, it's caveat it that it's a music degree.
Yeah. Do you have one?
Nope, not even
Okay.
close.
All right. I'm just going to point that out that you might want to go get one before you have a comment about that.
No. I'm preparing for being one of those old right wing people that are like University of Life, School of Hard Knocks, mate. Ugh. No, I'm very jealous of anyone with a university career. I don't know if I've ever told the story of why I didn't go into higher education. Won't go into it now, but yeah, it's my fault. I definitely should have done.
Yeah, well, as someone whose dad almost flunked out of college and he was the first in his family to
Yeah.
go, it's a hard hoop to jump through if no one has been there before you to sort of help guide you.
Definitely. Now, I was hoping to have this conversation with Lauren because I know her husband was reasonably similar. In fact, we can have it a little bit now. So to remind me that I'm diverting back to taking the mickey out of musicians, but if you don't have that example in your family, you can't be what you can't see. If all your family go into trades or like sales, so my dad always made his money from commissions on sales. Car salesman, had a small business trying to sell pallets. You know, the things you load pallets on?
Yep.
Like he thought his empire was going to be from selling pallets. That was not his empire. We lost the house. But you don't have that example of people going to university and having that support bubble. But you can succeed if you have a support structure that is motivated to go, right, we have our sights set on university. We're going to get you private tutors. We're going to make sure you're taking the right exams at the right times. And you can gamify it a little bit if you have motivated parents.
Yeah, you can. And I think, again, I know you hate it when I cite general studies, but
A
from my
study
past
says,
readings and
yeah,
research, there's a very big correlation between having parents who've been to college and students who then therefore go on to
yeah,
college. And it's gotten, this is my opinion now, it's gotten a lot harder, I think, than it used to be. Colleges were always selective, but there wasn't the same pressure for everyone to attend them.
yeah,
And over the course of my lifetime, it's been pretty much gone from, okay, you need a high school degree to get a job that will pay, that will buy you a house eventually and have a family if that's your jam, to no, you got to have at least an undergraduate degree and preferably a graduate degree
mm,
if you want to get out and earn what is now middle class living, at least here in
yeah,
the United States. So now everybody wants to go to college. So now it's incredibly competitive and selective to get into even state colleges, institutions that used to be like, oh, you could just turn up a week before, send in an application, be like, oh, you live here? Great, come on down. Or can you read a couple of words? Can you add 2 plus 2? Okay, yeah, sure, you're in. Come on, take some college classes. And it's entirely changed. It's going through it with my daughter right now. I cannot tell you how much time and energy and effort has already been devoted to getting her
mm.
into a college. It's a full-time job, really, at this
No,
point.
well, it is, and I'm hoping that we're going to be motivated in that same way. And I'll revisit, why I didn't end up going to education because I haven't done that story justice. But just to say that at the time there was people in my ear saying, "Oh, you don't need all that anyway." Okay, oh look, we've been perfectly fine. This is how you make your money. Oh, you're a mug wasting all that money. And this was we were one of the first generations that had to pay for university education as the number of people doing university education increased. So there was these big tuition fees and there was a big backlash. So people were kind of going, oh, you're going to get yourself into debt for what? You're going to get yourself into debt to be an accountant? And you go, well, yeah, actually, that would have been a really, really good idea. But I didn't do any of that and ended up just going into the trades.
Yeah, well, you're not alone. Lucas said he was the first to go to college,
Mm,
and he failed out the first time. Sam said neither of his parents went to college,
mm,
but thankfully he had friends who helped him through that transition, who he'd made, who were there, help explain to him like what
yeah,
words to use, how to talk to the interviewers, I guess, and stuff like that.
yeah.
And my wife was the first in her family to go to college, and so I know from her talk too, it's just overwhelming. You
But
just have no idea what's going on, and everybody else shows up with like they were born to be there. It's really it's a remarkable thing, I think.
yeah, so
And,
what? Yeah, like you said, yeah, born to be there. And well, I blame myself. Looking back, I've spent a lot of time blaming myself for the decisions I made in not getting higher education. And I'm fine. Like I've had an interesting, varied life. Look at me, I'm talking like Frank Sinatra in a song. I've had an interesting and varied life. I've enjoyed my work and my career on the whole. It's fine, but I do desperately wish I'd gone and got a university education, of course. So I'm very, very jealous. So yes, all my sniping at my wife is from a point of jealousy. But I remember my friend Josh at school, and we were broadly similar. Like we had been tested for IQs. We did similarly in tests. We were very similar kind of people. And he then, we both went to obviously like a normal school, But his parents had him like doing French A level before when he was like 16, doing GCSEs. He had extra studies. He was getting extra math lessons. And they really gamed it so that he would go get 4 A's at A level, and then he was prepared for his entry level to Cambridge University. And he got into Cambridge University. No, not really any different upbringing to me. And then he got out of there. He did art history, and then ended up becoming a executive at Vodafone. What that's got to do with art history, I don't know. It's more just that, we can see that you are the kind of person who can complete an art history degree at Cambridge University, come and be an executive selling mobile phones. But when you've got the right people in your ear as a naive 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old, it can make the world of difference. And so, it's amazing the class prejudice we've got in this country, how we will box one person into one category, one person into another category, and their lives will be so wildly different based on the influences they had, in their ears. And I'll admit, I was young and dumb and not clever enough to see through that some of that advice wasn't the best advice. But that happens, and that shaped my life going forward.
Yeah, well, as someone that age, you're quite susceptible to what the people you put on a pedestal in your life have to say, even if what they have to say is remarkably ill-considered and stupid. And at that point, you're either going to be lucky or you're not. Your lottery ticket will pay off or it won't. And I know this is one of your things, and I know you have complained about this in the media.
Yeah.
But the people you meet when you go to these schools, like you mentioned your acquaintance who went to Cambridge there.
Yeah.
The most powerful thing about a university education isn't necessarily what you learn. It's the people you meet who are your same age, who will go on and remember your name, who you can call on for favors, and when you're looking for jobs. They create networks.
Yeah.
Self-sealing networks, and they already enter at a high level. So even if you have the skills and the competencies, if you don't know that person, if they're not your friend, you're not really being considered for that job in the same way, if you catch my drift.
No, and if you're an employer who went to Cambridge University, I'm stereotyping a little bit as well, and I come in as a ex-squaddy, and I'm like, yeah, all right, mate, and I'm behaving and just conducting myself the way I am, it's a little unfamiliar. When a 25-year-old that's come out of Cambridge University, who spent his whole time speaking, having that kind of company, the same kind of friends that this employer has, you're instantly recognizable, aren't you? And you're going to get, that guy's going to get the nod over you in most situations, even if it's unrelated to education, because you're my people, and I understand, I understand you, I understand where you're coming from. We can work together. I could rant about this at length, but I do remember one reporter and presenter doing an impassioned Twitter video where he was saying, I get really annoyed with people saying that it's people who succeed have privilege. It's not about privilege. He said, the people who I work with, the amazing people that I've worked with in my career, they all have one thing in common. They work hard. And that's how he said it, straight at the camera. They work hard. That implication is, if you haven't made it, it's because you didn't work hard enough. He then went on at length for like 15 minutes, but go on, Matt, you first.
Well, I was going to say, my favorite thing is, I feel like if you were going to say that, you should be required to spend a year working a kitchen at McDonald's.
Yeah, that's fair.
And explain to me that that's not hard.
Or a nurse, or a firefighter, or should I be so bold, a soldier.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But then he went on to describe it's about hard work. It's about building relationships and pulling each other up. And he's describing exactly what you just described. It's that in those circles, they do pull each other up and they do help each other. And that would be a great bit of advice for someone with access to those circles. But what he was basically describing was the old boy network. And he's going, you should, why don't you haven't succeeded in media or in broadcasting? Why don't you simply use the old boy network? And you go, geez, man, how rose tinted are those glasses?
Yep, exactly.
Anyway,
and that burns down the lie that is meritocracy in my opinion. Because as we all know, there are loads of talented people who never even get a chance. And sometimes when people are not that talented, they get that chance and all the support and all the chances and more than anyone else would be given just because their dad owns a team.
You brought it to F1.
What? Did I say something? Did I say that out loud?
You
I'm
caught
so
me
sorry.
by surprise because I was going, I've been ranting here. We've got to wind this down. We've got to wind this down onto something else. But yeah, you caught me out. Yeah, Lance Stroll, of course, on there. But the reason I was thinking about education is, we're thinking about, our kids. And I want to be Josh's parents. And I want to make sure the kids have opportunities to learn languages. I mean, we've got a real nice advantage with Nicola being a musician like she is. Like all our kids, both our kids will be graded musicians, and that helps. That always helps with these kind of applications and stuff. And they'll all have a lot of extracurricular kind of podcasts and shows and YouTube channels to point to as well. But gone.
Well, no, I was going to say, I mean, we're talking about education, but didn't you mention before we started the show that there was some drama this week?
Oh, that I said that I can't talk about on the show.
Did you say that?
Yeah.
Well, then can we talk about my drama?
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about your drama.
Because I put it, I was very, I put it in the Dad Hub chat, which I hate to tell our fans, there is a secret WhatsApp Dad Hub chat that still exists. It's the only remnant left on the internet, so just don't even bother to go look.
I love. No, I know. People have gone and found Dad Hub because we've talked about it here on occasion. But just to say, it was on Google Podcasts, which I had no control over, and I was like, why is it on Google Podcasts? Because I thought I had taken it down. Not really for any nefarious purposes. I'm planning to re-release them, but I want to do it on my terms, and I want to do it like perhaps when we don't have another podcast running. So the Dad Hub group is brilliant. I love whinging in there. Simon Dan, who is a fabulous YouTuber and is now fabulously wealthy off his YouTube channel. I hate him so much. And Tony Thunderbeast Barnard as well, and me and Matt too. But yeah, in that chat. Go on, I missed your drama then. Oh, with the car crash.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry I didn't respond to that, but you got hit by a truck.
I did. I was turning. I was in the right-hand turn lane. So this is a single lane road that splits into two lanes. One goes straight, one turns right. And I pull up next to one of the we call them box trucks here. Not like the full-on 18-wheel massive ones, but a big vehicle nonetheless.
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about a 7.5 ton delivery vehicle.
Fair enough. Yes, exactly that. That's what I said. And light turns green. I'm driving forward because there's a fairly large setback because the road is two-way at that point, although it becomes one-way across the intersection. And as I'm driving, the truck just starts, and I'm moving my left hand towards my right hand, people, just coming right on over. And so... Yeah. And I know Alex says apparently we're not allowed to talk about iRacing any longer, but having had some practice at that with iRacing, I'm like, yeah. And he's going faster than me. He still manages to clip my side view mirror or wing mirror to you and just bang, shoves it the other way. Now, this is a car that I am still paying for. I have 2 more years of paying for this car. It's a used car, but still, I'm still paying for it. Yeah. And so I drive, I floor the accelerator, pull halfway in front of him, and I get out. I'm like, you hit my car. And he's like, he was Russian, which is not meant as pejorative here, but descriptive.
He mentioned
it, but his basic response was, there.
Oh, right.
I'm like, so you hit my car. I want your insurance information. Pull over. Now, obviously, this is causing a huge traffic jam. So I drive across the intersection. Yeah. And there's a place to pull over where we could pull over and people could get by. And I pull over, and he just drives past me.
No! Oh,
and I'm like, mother. Yeah, I was. And so I rip up, pull over in front of him again. Like I pull over now in a bike lane. So I'm not in front of him. Yeah. I'm like sort of angled a little bit. And and the light change, he starts to go again. And I get out of the car, and I walk right up to him with my hand held up in the universal, you better stop sign.
Yeah, ugh.
And he stops, and he gets out, and he goes, oh, there's no damage to your car. I'm like, well, that's not really the point. That's not really the point. Yeah, I can flip the mirror back. What if the motor doesn't work? Yeah. What if the lights don't work? All I want is your insurance information. Nope, mate. Gets on the phone. He yells at me. I yell at him. I actually, you've probably been in a fight at some point in your life, right?
No.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm an old guy, and I'm fairly patient. And there was a moment there was just one moment where I could feel like that spiral of rage.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to go get the heavy thing out of my trunk and start hitting this guy with it.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I didn't. I just like walked away. Eventually his boss shows up, and we're still all arguing about it. They won't give me the insurance information. Finally, a policeman rolls up and says, "Is there a problem here?" And I'm like, "This guy hit my car, and he won't give me his insurance information." And the guy's like, "There's no damage." And the police officer's like, "Well, it's not really about anything other than if you hit his car, you have to give him the insurance information." And then after that, things got resolved. But it was probably an hour plus.
Oh
we
my
were sat
God.
there. Yeah, no, I was furious. And he would come over and yell right in my face. And then the worst part, the thing that really incensed me,
Yeah.
was that he accused me of turning into him.
Lane
I'm like,
system.
I'm turning right. Why would I be driving into your lane, you stupid, moronic piece of utter garbage, dumpster fire moron? Why would I do that? You're in a massive truck. You didn't know I was there, and you just went and hit my car. Now give me the insurance information that I'm entitled to by law and get out of my face so I can get on with my day. That's really how I felt.
This is great. This is great because you're all now seeing what Matt is like pre-show when I like suggest that like, oh, his fader's in the wrong position or something. He's like, "You unmitigated garbage piece of blah, blah, blah. It's in the same place as the last show. I'm walking here." That's how you sound. Talking about that confrontation though, man, like your heart's pumping, you're angry, but then at some point you realize, oh, heck, like this could actually be a physical confrontation. And they're the situations where, you know, I'm pretty good at catching myself. You know, talking about having fights, I can say to you, I've never had me losing my temper result in a fight. It's always been, you know, some guy's kicking off and there's a group of you or whatever and you have to help people out. But it's always from a point of view of like, we've got to resolve this as quickly as we can, and sometimes you have to be physical. I've felt that rage that snaps inside you, and you feel like your ancestors, like you feel like the clashing of swords and your family banner going up in the air. I've never then enacted that into like attacking someone physically, which is good, and I'm glad you didn't end up attacking a truck driver on the side of the road. But it's important to acknowledge that feeling because we as human beings, we do that. We get so angry, and it's like the lizard part of our brain, isn't it? It's the fight or flight, and the fight is just like kicking in, and that rage can be dangerous. And you think, I'm a moderate, sensible, law-abiding person, yet I wanted to rip that guy's head off for a moment. I was able to control it, but obviously like other people aren't, maybe, you know? And what if the guy you are having this argument with, what if he's feeling that rage and he can't control it, and then he's going to come at you with that same rage? It's a horrible feeling. And I always walk away, whenever I feel like that, I always walk away feeling cheap, childish, disappointed, and it ruins my whole day once I get that kind of real fighty rush.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand that. I feel like if as long as you walk away, you're doing all right. You know, that's my thing. But it was amazing because I spent the entire rest of the day in like an entirely altered and bizarre state.
Yeah, of course.
Like some sort of massive adrenaline hangover.
It's horrible.
From this endurance conflict that was just foolish. That was stupid. I mean, he could have called his boss. He could have said, "This is our insurance carrier. This is the insurance policy number." Taken his pictures, given me his license. I could have given him my insurance stuff, and that was the end of it. It could have taken like 15 minutes to solve.
Well, you never,
nuts.
I mean, you don't know. Like, he could have like the worst boss. He could be on his last warning. You know, his wife could have said, "If this is it, if you hit any more wing mirrors, we go home, and the American dream is over."
I suspect he was going to get a talking to from his boss.
Yeah.
Based on her appearance on the scene, and after the police showed up, I think she was
turned up.
I think she was like, you know, I don't know, but I suspect this is probably not the first thing that he's had to deal with.
No, and as a former poor truck driver who was not good at driving trucks, I can actually sympathise a little bit, because there is that kind of sick feeling of going back to the office when you've dinged someone or something. And it's happened a few times. So I told you the one where I was in one of those articulated lorries, and the rear end swings out further than the wheels. Right. So I ended up like putting the end of my trailer like through this old guy's door. He came and caught up with me at the traffic lights and he said, "Oh, I think you've hit my car a little bit." And like, I'm like expecting there to be a scratched paintwork or something. And it's not. I've carved a 4-inch block out of his door. And I'm like, "Oh, dude, I am so sorry." And you look at the paint color on his car and the paint color on the side of my trailer. And it's like, it's completely, there's no doubt who it was that did it. So yeah, and then that sick feeling as you're driving back to the office, knowing that you've got to explain this and that you did your insurance. I think I told you guys how I hit a bridge with the wooden roof trusses. So I went under a bridge that was too low. I thought I was going to make it. I actually made it under the first part of the bridge and then got stuck underneath it. And the one that I haven't talked about actually was probably the worst one. Probably the worst one.
Are you going to unlock your deep dark treasure chest of secrets?
This was just the most embarrassing one. It was a brand new housing estate, but in a small village. So it was a village that was being expanded. And I'm driving along in a lorry that's quite tall. And normally you have a kind of a normal height, it's like 13 foot. And you can't be higher than 16 foot or something for motorway bridges. And I don't know, I must have measured it wrong or just been careless or what. But this was not any bridges. There was no bridges on the route. So there was no need to check for that kind of height. As I was driving along, I had a load of like flat wooden walls that they would then put up and then build the bricks around. So the flat wooden walls were on my thing. And I'm driving and I'm hitting the foliage on the top of the country roads. So I'm sat there thinking, oh man, they've not trimmed that foliage. They've let it overgrow. That's why it's hitting my truck. And then I was hearing like thump, thump, bang, bang, bang. I'm like, ooh, like loads of those branches are hitting, man. So I move into the center of the road. And then anytime another car's coming up, slow right down, move to the left-hand side. So I'm in the center of the road to avoid the bum, bum, bum. Get through the countryside, in towards the village. I'm like, whoa, glad that's over. Geez, I'm going to have a strong word with the council about the fact they haven't trimmed those trees. Anyway, I drive through this village. It's at the back end of the village. I park up. They start unloading it. I'm having a cup of tea, relaxing on the side of the truck, and I look and I notice there's some engineers out going up telegraph poles, and then there's a power van as well, and there's telecommunications vans out there, and I'm completely oblivious to the fact that I had wiped out every single power and telecommunications line in the whole village. I'd just gone all the way down the main street going ping, 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 and I was like, there's no sign that says low-hanging cables or whatever. I guess it was just an unusually high load. I never admitted to it. And I just went, do. I said, well, me admitting to it's not going to do anything. The power companies out there, they're obviously fixing it.
They're fixing it, yeah.
But there's just me going, look, I don't drive trucks anymore. And I don't think I should go back to it. But yeah, that's a few times I've been caught out in a truck. So maybe he was just a young Russian version of Spanners on his last warning, Matt.
Yeah, he was not young.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Well, I'm glad you're okay, and I'm glad you didn't end up in an altercation. That's good.
Yeah, me too. I've managed to avoid them as an adult. You know, when I asked about fighting, I meant like grade school and stuff like that, not as an adult.
Oh, man.
As an adult, I've managed to avoid fisticuffs.
Yeah. So at school, I think I was better. At school at avoiding the fisticuffs, and we got very good at running away as kids. We got very good at running away and learning like, oh, there's trouble here, peg it, go. Oh, sirens, peg it, go. As an adult, unfortunately, I was wrapped up in green most of the time, and it was we had one friend called shall I real name? We had one friend called Smudger, who he just attracted trouble, and he would just go out of his way to he would get like paranoid when he was drunk, and we kept having to bail him out of fights all the time. Like, you know, he was the sort of guy like you'd be in a urinal and he'd be next to another guy and he'd like lean all the way in, he'd lean all the way over and stare down towards the guy next to him's crotch. And when the guy looked at him to get annoyed, he'd go, nice watch. You know, it's just stuff like that to just... And I think, like, are you actively seeking this out? And he'd be like, oh, no, like, no, I'm not seeking it out. It's not Tony, by the way. He goes, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, oh, he was starting it with me. I'm like, yeah, the last 20 times, Smudger, it's been the other person starting it with you. It's you. But yeah, we'd see the warning signs and we go, oh, God, look, he's off again. We better get him back. Yes, that wasn't my fault.
Friends like that, right?
Oh, tell me about it. We could do a whole episode on that, but let's not. Oh, it's 45 minutes in. 45 minutes in. That's all right, isn't it? Time flies by. I like this. This is my favourite project at the moment. Obviously, we love Missed Apex, but I would never just lose 45 minutes in Missed Apex because there's always like there's a schedule. There's stuff we've got to get through. But yeah, with Remain Indoors, the time can just fly by, and I love having the live chat going as well. I should have opened it up to call-ins, and in fact, I was planning to, but I don't think we're struggling for anything to talk about because I want to end the show talking about moving house.
Okay.
What did somebody attract your attention?
No. I was thinking at 45 minutes, and we've made it to the first thing in our notes.
Yes, that's not the first time that's happened, is it? That's not the first time that's happened. Of course, we had all the stuff with Lauren that we wanted to talk about as well. Reading. Oh, no, reading. Let's do reading first. I'm reading a book.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
You?
Yeah. So normally...
How much are they paying you?
No. Right. Well, okay, so audiobooks is a different thing. But I'd say even with audiobooks, I love the saying things into the microphone type thing. I love that. I love that part of it. I love acting. I love doing a character voice. I love telling the story. What I don't love is reading. And I have a double wide monitor in front of me and I have it zoomed to like 300%. And I'm wearing out the little scroll bar on my mouse scrolling down because it stresses me out reading the words and then repeating them. So reading the words and getting them into my mind, it gives me like anxiety poop. Like I will start reading it and I will go, oh my God, this is a terrible situation I'm in. I must poop. I don't know why my mind does that. It doesn't matter if I've had 0 poops or 10 poops. When I have that kind of anxiety, I call it anxiety poop. And I'll even say it with my wife now. I'll be like, oh, that's going to be the title of the show, isn't it? Anxiety poop. But if she sees a situation is like stressing me out, she's like, anxiety poop? I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling, it doesn't mean I have to go, but I get the feeling of like, oh my God, I'm feeling, I'm trapped here. I must evacuate. I must get out of this situation. So the actual reading part of it stresses me out. The performance doesn't. So when it comes to reading out loud to the kids, I for the longest time, I've avoided actually sitting them and reading them a story. You know, like you must have done that with your kids. You just sit and read a book to them.
I still do.
Yeah. Oh, even though she's like 20 or whatever.
No, she will be 16 soon.
And you still sit and read a book?
Every night I still read to her. Just the material is more complex.
Every night?
Yep.
Oh, you soft lad. You sit there every night and read to your 15-year-old. That is darling.
Yep. It's like our thing that has survived all of her transitions is that we have like this little time and like I read to her, but a lot of times we just like chat and talk and stuff like that too.
Yeah, I'm not going to be doing that when they're 15. They'll have moved out by then, hopefully, won't they? Maybe 15, maybe. So what I've always done in lieu of that, now my wife sits and reads them stories. In lieu of that, we've done other things. So we have a variety of evenings where, you know, we've got the Ask Me Anything, where they can ask me anything about life and I will be candid and as open as I can be, appropriate to their age, because I always want them to have a sounding board. I always want them to have like, is there anything pressing you today? Ask me any question. Ask me where babies come from. Ask me how elephants die. Do you know, ask me anything at all. And if I don't know the answer, we'll go and look it up. So that's one of our things is like the Ask Me Anything. And that is an interesting and engaging conversation before bedtime, but not quite a story, but it's still engaging. So I don't want to feel like I'm not engaging them.
Yeah, no. And it's having that time available to them, especially as they get older, I think it's so important, man. It's so easy. I hear my daughter talk about her friends and like they live in their room and they come out to go to school and they have like no communication at all.
I'd hate that.
You know, it's like a prison. The parents just leave the plate by the door and the door opens and the plate goes in and then the dirties come out and they just like, they live these entirely separate lives. And I can't imagine that.
I don't want that.
And maybe as a musician, I was lucky that I got to spend time with her after school when she was little, you know, because we do have jobs that weren't strict 9-to-5 jobs. So, but I couldn't imagine living a life, having a kid and living a life with them like that.
Well, for the longest time, I was lucky if I just got home in time to read a bedtime story, so to do that bedtime area. So I'd come back from work and I would desperately want to spend time with them. Now that obviously like I can get home earlier because, well, my house is there. It's a little bit, less desperate, but I still want to spend time with them, obviously. So we'll do that one engaging thing, which is Ask Me Anything. We'll also have an evening called Lovely Stories, where, because we've got all these childhood books that are too simple for them now, but there's libraries, there's rows and rows and rows of them. So they'll take a very simple story and I will read it going, oh, what a lovely memory, to be reminded of this childhood story. And then we will increasingly nitpick at stuff as we're going through the book until we're all in a furious, mad rage. And at the end of the story, like we hate the author, the animation is rubbish, the premise of the story is offensive, if anything. I throw the book to the floor and then I start beating them up for selecting such a terrible book and ruining my whole evening. Then I yell, go to bed, I hate you all. And they go to bed lovely and happy and full of joy. So that's another alternate to, it's not the best parenting in the world. Green Owl's going to say something in the chat about me making him cross the road 40 times, isn't he?
Probably.
Okay.
That will live in infamy in the chat.
Fine. Anytime I do bad parenting, 40 times crossing the road. But and another thing is we do historical documents where I claim to them that I've got a secret stash of historical documents that outline the lives of these prehistoric family called the Uggs, right? And in this, the protagonists are basically those two and me and the wife, and we solve problems that the cavemen are having to go through. We strip back all of the modern world and they're just trying to get by in their society. So it's a little bit of improv drama as well. And they lead the improv as well. So I might say, oh, and do you know what the girl did? And my daughter might go, oh, she killed the boar. So almost like a choose your own adventure. So we solve those problems. And as part of the problem solving, my daughter ended up making herself the chieftain of a new religion. So she made up a religion from scratch because she wanted to be in charge. And then I played the role of the villagers, throwing flaws at her, like saying, but if that was true, then this wouldn't be true. And then she has to come up with a counter excuse. And I tell you what, the religion she's formed in this in these historical document stories is very familiar. It's eerily familiar, Matt.
Oh, is it now? This is making me want to veer off on a tangent to one of my favorite stories ever.
Yeah.
When I taught, I taught at many different schools, and it was at a concert for my classes of students, and they had been assigned because it was a private school, so they could study religion without some of the complications you'd have in a public school. They had been assigned; they'd been studying Norse religion.
Oh,
and the
nice.
teacher had assigned them to invent their own god. And I had two kids in the same class, and this came up as a topic of discussion as we were waiting to perform. And one of them goes, well, oh yeah, my god does ABC. And the other one goes, mine does EFG. And oh yeah, mine does XYZ. And oh yeah, mine does PDQ. Oh yeah, my god's better than your god. This is exactly the conversation. And it happened in about 30 seconds. And I'm like, yep. There we go.
Yep,
you just put your finger on it, kids.
I mean, like, yeah. I mean, okay.
My God's better than your God.
I mean, it's not a particularly nice example, but the example I always point to is like, if heaven was real, which it might be. I'm not the arbiter of all things, but it sounds so wonderful. Wouldn't you want to immediately get there? Why would you not just commit suicide? And so the obvious counter to that is, oh no, suicide's a sin. So you can't do that. So you could see if like your flock of faithful people all were like, no, heaven sounds brilliant. I'm going to jump off that cliff. You go, we've got a real problem with this jumping off the cliff thing. Oh, yeah, they're trying to get to heaven. Well, how do we stop that? Okay, we need to make a rule about not jumping off the cliff. Okay, if you commit suicide, you definitely can't go to heaven. And these are the kind of rules that my daughter's now coming up with as a counter, to my arguments. I'm just trying to sit and pick holes in it. And it's been fascinating. Yeah. It's been a good exercise in like critical thinking.
Well, that's amazing. And really, the idea of just having that interaction, a space where they feel safe talking to you about things.
Exactly.
My always fear as a parent. And let's face it, we didn't know what fear was till we had kids.
True.
It's really true.
Yeah.
The biggest fear is that they will get themselves into a situation and hide it from you. And it will spiral to a point where it is beyond being controlled, like whether that involves jail or whatever. You just want them to feel safe enough that even if they've done the worst thing imaginable, that they're not afraid to come and say, "Can you please help me with this?" Because that's the one thing as a parent I never want to happen.
And I guess the hope is, because we've created this space where we can explore ideas and where it's always safe to ask me anything.
Yep.
That we will be able to do that. And yeah, I have that fear as well. And yeah, I hope they'll always be able to come to me. I could give you a good example of that if I could tell you the story I was alluding to before we started, but I definitely can't. But
then don't.
Recently, I started getting a bit jealous of the fact that my wife always has a novel on the go with them that they're reading together, you know. So I went, right, okay, I'm going to do it, but I will pick a familiar topic, a familiar book to me to reshare with them. So I have picked The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and we're sitting and we're reading a chapter of that a night, and it has been an absolute delight to introduce them to that kind of humor.
And this is an awesome book to choose. I have read it to my daughter as well, so I commend your choice. There are many wonderful books, and as they get older, the lovely thing is that you can pick books more and more like that.
Yeah,
and that they will genuinely enjoy hearing them.
Well, I really want to read them the Red Dwarf books, which were absolutely my favorite sci-fi comedy books, but there's far too many adult themes in that, so it wouldn't be appropriate. But Hitchhiker's Guide, I think it's just about okay. And if obviously I can edit anything out as we come to it. If I think there's a relationship later on with Fenchurch, isn't there? But at the moment we're just on the bit where the spoiler, the Earth gets destroyed in chapter 3.
That is one of the most hilarious things I have ever read in my life.
Because they're sitting there and they're like, what? Wait, what? The Earth is destroyed? I'm like, yeah, the Earth is destroyed. And that's kind of where the story starts. But before the Earth gets destroyed, and this is a nice loop back to an earlier conversation we were having, the guy who's in charge from the council, it turns out that his great male descendant or whatever is Genghis Khan. And he doesn't know why he feels this great rush of anger coming up to him. He said whenever he gets angry, he smells horse fur and wants to set light to things, and he doesn't know why. And it's because he's got the Genghis Khan gene, which is just freaking hilarious.
Yeah, it is. And I can't wait till you get to the poetry part too.
Oh, the Vogon poetry. Oh, that's the next chapter. So they're just about to go to the Vogon ship now. And it's good because you get to do the voices and be all depressed.
Yeah, I'm actually reading my daughter Confederacy of Dunces now, which is it's a set in New Orleans, and it's a comedy, and it's about, well, I can't even describe it. It's just a thing that you have to read, but it's full of Southern accents and all kinds of oh, I've just lost a word. Isn't that fun? I'll just go with accents, different vocabularies,
tropabulation,
jargon,
tropabulation.
Argot. There we
go. Argot. Okay, I was going to make one up for you. Tropabulation. Thank you. That's the one. Yeah,
that also works.
Yeah, and it's nice to not just be reading children's stories. It's nice to read like an adult story where the characters are adults and everything's just happening in a sort of normal adult conversation way, and seeing that they are not bored. As well. That's nice to see that they're engaged in it too.
I actually read my daughter a book called, I want to say, was it Shadow Divers? It was about these two deep water shipwreck divers who discovered a German submarine off the coast of New Jersey. And man, they just set her brain on fire. She loved that book. She actually read it on her own. And found a real interest in stuff like that I never would have guessed, because she's such an arty kid, that she would have had any interest in history and stuff like that. But she was completely fascinated. So now we alternate between reading fiction and nonfiction books like that.
Brilliant. Well, there we go. So I can't say that I haven't read a book for ages now, because I'm actively reading a book, and it's not giving me too much anxiety poop. Thanks for joining us for the Remain Indoors podcast. It's been a wonderful place over the last 6 months for me and Matt to hang out. The numbers are going up. Tell your friends. Good. Yeah, a little bit. It's crawling up. It's the kind of numbers where I think because we've got an existing audience from Missed Apex and a great Slack community from our patrons at Missed Apex. There has been a certain transfer over from that. it would be nice if we would be able to grow, outside of that bubble. But in a conversation with my wife, she was saying, well, why can't you grow Remain Indoors? And I think really the reason is that it's not got any niche. So unless you're particularly like interested in hearing from, oh, I know Matt and Spanners from this other thing, then it's why would you bother tuning into two random people with a podcast called Remain Indoors? So I think there's always going to be that limit for Remain Indoors. Whereas with Dad Hub, we had our little niche, and it doesn't matter if there's 1,000 other podcasts that are about the same subject as your niche. You're still targeting that niche, and you can grow within that niche. If you're just targeting people who would be vaguely interested in what you or your co-host from another show have to say, you're limited.
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point you're kind of stuck with word of mouth a bit.
Yeah,
like friends telling their friends, "Oh no, you should. It's good work. You listen to all your work. You listen to do that."
Yeah.
And as Mr. Phil points out, quality is always better than quantity. This is true. However, when it comes to advertising revenue, it's a different story, my friend.
So when it comes to like, we would love another podcast to kind of fill what we've done with Missed Apex, so that we can become like a nice little podcasting empire, and that's our lives as we sit here and we start podcasting. Remain Indoors is probably never going to do that. That said, it's had other value. It's had incredible value for just turning the mic on and experiencing podcasting and just doing podcasting and getting a little better at broadcasting. It's always fun to have like a little diary outlet as well. And the community that we've had, I think, has enjoyed being in a somewhat smaller community, but we've definitely had a sense of community and had lots of lovely feedback from it. So I'm not talking about like, Remain Indoors is rubbish and it's a waste of time. I'm just saying, like, if we were to look for another podcast that would grow, it's probably not going to be Remain Indoors. But my wife had an idea. She said, instead of Dad Hub, why not stop being a bunch of sexist pigs? She didn't. I'm paraphrasing, and have Family Hub.
Okay, that could work.
Uh-oh.
Family Hub. I don't know. It just doesn't roll. You know why?
Why?
3 syllables. Family Hub. Da-da-da-da.
Fam Hub.
Dad Hub. Da-dam.
Fam
Right,
Hub.
Right.
Yeah.
So we need a 1 syllable.
Fam Hub. I'm giving it to you. Fam Hub. Kin Hub.
Fam Hub could work.
Okay. This isn't the most thrilling content.
We'll work on it. I like the approach. I like the non-gendered or the all-gendered approach. How would you describe that?
Well, I think when we started that, we were all kind of we came at it from the very, I think, valid point of view that we all had something in common, which is that we were young dads finding our identity. And I think some of those identity struggles when you start a family, I think some of them are typically different between men and women. Go through some very specific things that men often don't face. So that's the kind of antagonistic kind of. And it was a faux antagonistic, it was a for fun antagonistic kind of back and forth that we had, sort of old battle of the sexes kind of thing. But I don't really feel that anymore. So I wouldn't want to necessarily do a whole Dad Hub thing again.
Well, I mean, and the thing was, at the time, we were all younger parents with younger kids.
Yeah.
And the transition to parenting is brutal and violent.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's jarring.
And you find yourself in... Even if you and your spouse have a tremendously strong relationship,
which we don't,
and you find yourself under levels of stress where you oftentimes are just stuck with things you need to talk about and get off your chest, but you can't, because the stress level is already, I want to make a tire analogy here, but I won't. The stress level is already 100%. So you can't add to it, but you've also got no place to go on your own.
Yeah.
So it was, we made a joke, but it was, people make fun of the word safe space, but it was a place where you could go.
Yeah.
And you talk about, space, you lose all your friends straight away when you have a kid. And it's true. It was a place where we could go and just like, bitch and grumble and moan effectively and get that out of our system. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that was of its time kind of thing. I would be happy to re-release those on the feed in a quieter period of what we're doing. But going forward, if we want a podcast, and we do, we will probably have to find some kind of niche like that to fit ourselves in if we have any particular ambition, to do a serious one. But this has been wonderful, and I've really enjoyed everybody tuning in. And it's I tell you what, it's got a proper place in my week. It's something that I would schedule other things out of the way. If someone said, "Oh, can I come over to yours for a cup of tea on Thursday?" No, like in the morning, you need to be gone by 1. And a lot of that, and a lot of that is obviously because of you, Matt, but obviously because of our great guests, the live chat room, and the lovely emails and stuff we get from it. So we're going to get out of here. Sorry we didn't do any Girl Running Late stuff, but we'll try and catch up with Lauren as soon as we can. And next week, we had scheduled Michelle Davey, the Cockney in the Countryside, who we used to do some radio stuff with. She is fantastic. So we'll definitely have a nice whinge and a moan with her too. But guys, be safe, remain indoors. Yeah, it's pretty good. Should we get out of here, Matt?
I think it's very good.
I enjoyed that.
For making it all up.
Wow.